Welcome to Public Speaking with Peter George. Do you want to be calm, confident, and credible every time you speak in public? Then stay tuned as Peter and his guests discuss public speaking tips, techniques, and tactics that help you increase your impact, influence, and income. Here's your host, the author of The Captivating Public Speaker, Peter George.
When it comes to public speaking, do you believe that there's only one way to do it? If you do, does that put added pressure on you? What would it feel like if you could find inspiration and develop your skills from a multitude of sources, some not so conventional? You know, Pablo Picasso once said, "Learn the rules like a pro, so you can break them like an artist." I believe this, and so does Martin Henson, my guest. And he's here to give you several ideas how you can develop your own public speaking skills. Martin is an advocate for change and has protested in the streets and organized in the community. He's worked as a therapist and watched people make personal growth they couldn't have imagined. He has spoken at countless trainings, workshops, panels, and community events on issues of Black community, racism, activism, masculinity, sexual harm, creating change, and moving through adversity. Here's my conversation with Martin Henson. Hey, Martin, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Martin, it seems like so many of us have taken different paths to becoming public speakers. How did you get into it?
I had a winding road. My dad was a pastor. I grew up in a church. I grew up doing Easter speeches and presenting and being a part of plays and being in the choir. So I was just encouraged to speak from a young age and practice that and be thoughtful about what I said. So it's been a part of how I grew up.
What struck me there, first of all, a diversity of ways, but being the son of a pastor, boy, I don't think anybody does it better than pastors. They know how to grab attention and hold on to it.
Yes, absolutely. So I grew up in that, and you absorb it, and you see how they move with the crowd. You see how they turn a message a certain way, how they rise in tension, all of that. Yeah, definitely. I remember seeing that many times in church.
What are some of the strategies you use when you speak in public?
Well, for me, I prefer to be really fluid. So I have to do a lot of preparation on the front end before I actually speak to make sure that I know any point or direction that the conversation could go. I have to know my content really well. I have to study and enunciate really well. Sometimes there's different activities that you need to do, especially if you want to be spontaneous and show up in a moment in a certain way. You have to make sure that you're loose enough to do that, as well as know the material. So those are some of the things that I've done. I like to be creative. I like to let it flow in the way that it flows. That's what I've embodied in my practice, and having a big or wide vocabulary. You have to be able to touch different words and different phrases if you want to speak in the way that I prefer to speak.
Now, when people see you speak and you're speaking with that flow and you look spontaneous, yet you said you prepped so much.
Yeah.
Do you think a lot of people, when they see people who are appearing to be spontaneous, going, "Oh, look at that. He's speaking right off the cuff. That's what I should do"?
No, it's not natural in that sense. I think what's natural for me is maybe my voice or the timbre that I have, the not having as much anxiety around speaking. But when it comes to doing it well, you have to prep. You have to know your content. You have to know what makes you comfortable. There might be points in the conversation that you really like and enjoy that can pull you out of whatever mood that you're in, because you have to be lively, you have to be engaging, you have to be charismatic. That takes technique. And then being able to pause and think about the next word before it comes, not to speed up. That's a thing that can happen when you feel anxious. So speaking, you take your time, and that rhythm that I learned from church and seeing my father and other pastors speak, I learned that. I kind of absorbed it, where they flow with it and they let the crowd or whatever group that they're speaking to feel in that space. So they're not rushing and they're creating their own lane and people's minds. So they're hearing what they're saying and they're engaged and they're captivated. All of it, you have to think about it. I think one of the things that was really important for my growth as a speaker was learning how to get to your points and go slow and go slow, figure out where you want to go, especially if you want to speak in the way that I do, because I'm not going from a written style of a paragraph somewhere or 3 or 4 paragraphs that I've written or some essay. You have to take your time, get to it, think while you're talking, which is another thing around learning to manage your anxiety when you're speaking, if that's the type of style, if my style is the style that you want to have. Those are things that I took time to read and write and be creative. I write poetry. I practice putting sentences together. I'll do all these things to kind of pull out how can I turn a phrase in a variety of ways and then feel comfortable doing that on the spot.
Now, you said your father influenced you. Who are some other influences you had along the way?
Oh, so many things. I really like comics. I like comedy. I enjoy it. I like activism. I listen to Malcolm X speeches. I remember my namesake is after Martin Luther King. So every Martin Luther King Day, they play his speeches. I've heard them a million times, and I'll listen to comedians and I'll listen to how they work the crowd, how they get to their points, how they build tension, how they will come back to a point that they made before, how comfortable they are. And they make it seem like they're just going off top of their head when they've practiced this, they've rehearsed this. They do that every day, 30 minutes at a time, or however long their set is. But they make it look like it's conversational. And I love that. I love story. Jamie Foxx, I say this all the time. Jamie Foxx is one of the best storytellers I've heard.
Phenomenal.
He can just go anywhere with it. He might start singing. He might start doing like a comedy bit. He might get really serious, but he can flow into all of those things. And I pay attention to people who can do that really well.
And again, just like you said, they make it look easy.
Right.
But as you also said, they practice and practice and practice and do it again and again. And I think that's where that ease comes from.
Right.
That once you know it so well,
yeah,
you can relax as you do it.
Yeah.
And like you said, you think. You're relaxed enough to think about where you're going, how you're interacting. And by the way, your namesake, not a bad speaker either.
Not at all. I think he did a few things that we might be aware of. I don't know.
I think I've heard of a couple.
Yeah.
Another guy who was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's nice that you're following in the path of your namesake.
Yeah. No pressure.
No, none at all. So how would you describe your style?
I would say it's very fluid. It's definitely not a kind of just flowing out of whatever I'm thinking at the moment style. Let's say like a Donald Trump. He's going to say whatever is going on. A fly passes his face like, oh, look at that fly, or look at this. And he'll kind of come back and forward to whatever point he's trying to make. I'm not that. I would say I'm a very, very fluid speaker, a very passionate speaker. I want to inform, but I want to motivate, probably more so. And I realized to be able to do that, you have to be able to be entertaining to some degree. What part of your charisma can you pull up? So I lean on that when I speak, and it helps. So I don't really go super, super hard with data and information, because some speakers will hit you with different points, things that they've read, and they'll show their expertise by way of the information that they can give you. And I have some of that, and I can lean into it if I need to, but I like being able to move in different points, never be boxed in, be able to flow with whatever questions come about. But I also, in order to do that, like going back to my original point, I have to know what I'm talking about really well to be able to move from different points without feeling uncomfortable or getting jammed up. So that's what I would describe my style as. And I'm trying to think if I can think of anybody who's very similar, but there's nobody I can think about. You know what? Obama just had a video of him on the campaign trail because the elections are coming up. Somebody said something behind him while he was talking, and he curled his speech to address that, flow in the moment and went back to where he was before. And I would say I'm very similar to that. I want to feel connected to the crowd. I want to feel connected to my audience.
Have you heard what noted speakers and readers are saying about Peter's book, The Captivating Public Speaker? An incredible resource full of practical and easy to implement advice. Something for everyone, no matter what your current skill level is. Will help you achieve the results you've been striving for. After this episode, please use the link in the show notes to check out The Captivating Public Speaker on Amazon. Now back to Peter and his guest.
I think that's key. And I think a few things that you just said were key. One, the passion. You have to have the passion.
Yeah.
Got to be there. Two, that you're not there necessarily to inform, but to motivate people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a huge difference. We can inform with PDFs.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you come up with this? How did you knowingly, or did you knowingly come up with this type of style? Or did you just one day say, wow, this is what I am?
When I'm speaking, I have I'm making the most of my short attention span at times. So I'm paying attention to everything that's happening. Somebody coughing somewhere, somebody sitting in the front row, who came up before me, what they said, what the mood in the room is like, which is probably the most important part of being able to speak in the way that I do. And I use that to be able to captivate the audience, as opposed to focusing on one line of thought, which I'm not always naturally good at. I had to make the most of where my skill set is, which is to be entertaining, because I want to be entertained too. I want to speak in a way that keeps me engaged. So I had to build upon that in a way that makes the best use of all my skills. So that's where it came from. I don't know if I thought that I wanted to be like that or be like anyone specifically. Now, I did admire Malcolm X's speaking style because he was so smart and quick. He was so quick. And part of how they would interview him in the 60s was that they were trying to jam him up. They wanted to catch him in something he couldn't explain. And he would always be so ready. And so that was one thing that I want to be ready, but I think I want to be more light than he was, and compelling as Martin Luther King, or as entertaining as somebody like Jamie Foxx. I wanted to be able to mold that together, but I didn't have a vision of that before I started speaking. I just knew I wanted to speak.
That's quite a trio to mold together. What are some of the more unconventional places that you've learned some of your skills from?
Well, I think Oprah. Oprah was a buzzsaw when she wanted to get to a point. The early Oprah, because she was a talk show host, but very much an interviewer and would get to the point. And I like the idea of being able to challenge people to talk about topics that are difficult and different. And I saw that even though I didn't want to be a talk show host, I liked the way that she would get right to it. That was something really important. And then comedy is in all variety of comics, from Jim Gaffigan to Norm Macdonald to an Eddie Murphy, Richard Pryor, just all the ways that they can come to a point. Liza Lampanelli, all of them. How do they get to their point that they want to make? How do they start the conversation? Do they start with a joke? Do they start with a monologue? Do they lean you into it? Because you don't know where they're going. You just know you want to be along for the ride.
That's right.
I want it to be like that too. I like how you can build up something and then hit the point that you want to go to.
When you're starting to name those comedians, you're talking about, let's say, Richard Pryor and Gaffigan.
Mm-hmm.
We're at two ends of the spectrum on their delivery styles.
Right.
And I love that. And the other people you mentioned are everywhere in between. So you didn't just go for one style. You took from all these different styles, different skill sets, and studied them.
Yeah. And I think one thing too with my style, one thing I look for, if I'm writing, sometimes I write a little bit to prep, or I'll kind of talk it out. I wait until I'm saying something that makes me feel something. I might feel it in my chest. I might feel it in my stomach, feel it in my body where I get goosebumps. So that sort of attunement to the emotional landing of what I'm saying to myself as I practice, I might not know what I want to say, but I'll focus on whatever I'm saying that's giving me that feeling. Okay, I'll say, okay, I need to expand on that. And all of these people that I mentioned before, I have an eclectic style, so I want to take a little bit from everything that they're doing and be able to use it. And whatever I do is going to become something. I don't know what it's going to become, but I know all of these little pieces are what make me do things the way that I do it.
Now, what are some of the things you do to keep your skills sharp?
Reading poetry. Reading poetry is important because I want to see how they take an idea and expand it in unconventional ways. So it's not always narrative based. It's just you talk about a topic, let's say a flower, but you may never say flower. Petals are moving and the wind blows or something like that. I think that's like super creative. Another one is I love hip hop. I love rap. I'll be in the car. I'll put on a beat, an instrumental, and I'll freestyle. Can I spew out a coherent idea to this beat, to this music, which I like culturally, I love doing it. But if I feel like I can't get a thought out well, I'll try to find another way to practice. Can I flow into this? With no time, can I actually say something that makes sense relative to this particular idea? And then, of course, a language and learning new words. You have to read. You have to read and see how other people are talking about things. You have to know what relevant themes are happening and what type of connections are present in the moment to whatever topic that you like. So I may like a topic. Let's say I like to talk about food or barbecue. Like I like barbecue. But if the topic in the social or in the zeitgeist is Southern barbecue and where people are learning to cook their meat or how they're learning, how long they're learning to cook, I need to know how to get to that topic in a way that people are already primed for. And if they're not primed for it, I have to prime them for it in my conversation. How much time do I have? Do I have enough time to do that? If I don't have enough time, I might need to talk about something else. So it's just, putting it all together in a variety of different ways.
I like that because now it's not just one consistent way of learning or expressing yourself.
Right.
And truthfully, if you can freestyle, God bless you. I just watch people do that and I'm like, that's just a talent and they practice like anybody else.
Right.
But still to have that come to the forefront of your mind in time and in the right way and said in the right way. Yeah, that's talent. I can do it on the guitar. I can play lead over a backtrack.
Yeah.
But to do it with my voice, I just don't have that talent. So I give you a lot of credit. All right, Martin, when it comes to public speaking, what's one definitive word you'd like to share?
Captivate.
I like that. I don't know if you know or not, but the name of my new book is The Captivating Public Speaker. So
there we go.
I got to agree with that. Martin, where can my listeners connect with you?
Yeah, they can find me at martinhspeaks.com. You can find me on social media at Till We Free. And you can see more work from my organization, Be Men Foundation, at Be Men Foundation, and we're at bemenfoundation.org.
Martin, this has been a lot of fun. I really enjoyed speaking with you, and I'm sure my listeners got a lot out of it as well. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
That's a wrap of another episode of Public Speaking with Peter George. Be sure to tune in again for a conversation with another public speaking expert. And remember to use the link in the show notes to go to Amazon and check out Peter's acclaimed book, The Captivating Public Speaker.